Hey class, this is a tutorial, I guess of sorts, for the November 9th, class assignment, and by extension the homework that follows that. So let's take a look at this, at a couple things. Let's see. I have all the questions written down here in a format that makes sense. Just broken up the questions, and then by their typing, giving them headings so that we can answer them concisely. And then I have, of course, the file open right here. I've used pivot tables for basically everything. If you don't know how to use a pivot table or how to create one, you hit Insert, then hit Pivot Table, and then hit OK, and it creates a pivot table. And then you can drag your variables down into the different columns and values and change that. So I have created pivot tables to answer each question. Their answer to my satisfaction, which I guess is what matters, and that's what we're gonna take a look at. Question 1: which devices do customers predominantly use to access the e-commerce platform? I created this pivot table. I added device type to rows so that I have those as the row labels there, and then I added device type to the values, which gives me a count of those device types there. That gives me the answer. There's a couple things you can do here. One, you can just open up the snipping tool. I recommend, well, let me rephrase that. Don't send me a screenshot of this whole page, okay? Just send me one for the snipping tool, like using the snipping tool. The way you use the snipping tool is you open up the snipping tools on Windows, you hit New, and then you can just snip out this. Greenshot is another alternative to this. But I actually don't use the snipping tool myself very often because I have what's called Snagit, and so I use that. Then you just hit the copy button, and you can paste that in here. That puts the answer there, and then I will answer I'll answer the question: which devices do customers predominantly use? Web at 47632. Okay. Second question is, what is the percentage distribution of customers across each type of device? I created another pivot table. You could use the same pivot table, but I created one so that I wouldn't forget one. In this case, the only thing that I changed is still device type and rows and count of device type, but I click the little drop-down menu and I hit value field settings. And then under Show Value As, I click the drop-down menu and choose percent of grand total. That gives me the percent of the grand total here, and I'm going to open up the snipping tool again, and I'm going to take another screenshot of it, just like that. All right. I need a copy of it, and paste that in here. That's like that. And then I will answer the question: mobile, 7.13%, web, at 92.87%. Right, that's question 1. Question 2: what are the different product categories being sold on the e-commerce platform? So for question 2, I created a new pivot table and added product category to my rows and added sum of sales to my values. The reason why I added sum of sales is because I also wanted to answer the second question, this part 2 question as well: which product category boasts the highest sales volume? So I grab both of those at the same time. So I'm going to snag that. New snag. Just like that. I said yesterday to somebody, like, yeah, you can copy paste, but there's a good reason to use a screenshotter instead, and mainly that is we're going to get into using slicers here in a moment. At least I chose to use slicers, and it's very difficult to put this in if you have slicers because slicers won't copy and paste very easily. All right, so what is the difference? What are the different product categories being sold on the e-commerce platform? Auto and accessories, electronic, fashion, and home and furniture. All right, there is that answer. Which product category boasts the highest sales volume? The highest sales volume is fashion at, well, I'm just going to go over here and copy. Let's paste in that value. Question 3, how does the date and time impact sales? This is our first complex question. I've split this question into 2 parts here. You'll see why. So part 1 is, has date and time impact sales? And 2, can you provide an analysis of total sales by month, days of week, and time of arrival? The answer is yes. So what I've done here, let me click in here and show you. I have the order date by months. To do that, I chose in here. So I added, if we go to pivot table analyze, if we're clicked inside the pivot table, if you're clicked in one of the rows or columns that you add, you can choose your group field, and then you can just select what you want. In this case, I wanted months only for that one, and then for this, I chose hours only. So that gave me my hours, and that gave me my months. That is a pretty good detailing of time. I used some of sales, but I wanted to see the value percent of grand total because I wanted to see what my sales were across time. And then I created a helper column called days of week. So I just inserted a column, and I used this formula right here, equals text A2, which is this that cell right there, and then parentheses, or not parentheses, but comma quote DDD, close parentheses. And what that does is that gives me a day of the week helper. And then when I was in here, I chose to insert a slicer and chose days of week as my slicer. And that gave me the slicer over here. So what I can do here, this gives me month and then hour of the day. And I can just select which day I want to look at. Okay. You can do this different ways. You can do this. So I did it sort of a different way than the next one. I mainly did it this way because I didn't want to have the exact same thing for this one. But I'll show you the next one too, and maybe that'll make more sense. So I stuck the slicer over here to the side, and then I just took a look at this data. So across time, it looks like we have pretty low sales during the wee hours, and then increased sales during the normal business hours, and then they start falling off around 11 p.m., 10 or 11 p.m. But we have pretty standard sales for that. If we look at the different days of the week, we can see how that changes. And we can also see how that changes per month as well. So, again, I'm going to grab a snip of this. This is really the reason why you should use the snipping tool rather than trying to copy-paste, because that'd be kind of nightmarish to copy-paste. So I'm going to paste that in. You can see how it's impossible to read. That's okay. That's okay. I can tell what that says, especially because what I'm going to put as my answer is not anything specific in that screenshot. I'm just showing my work there. Instead, I'm going to put, let's say, how does the date and time impact sales? I'll say that if we look at the sales data across all the different months, let's take a look at that real quick. We look at the sales data across all the different months. It looks like first quarter we have pretty poor sales, and they pick up after that. So I'm going to say as for date, there are few differences between the days of the week, while I'll say there's a week. First quarter sales are lower compared to the other quarters. And finally, most sales happen during business hours, with few sales happening in the early AM hours. There you go. A couple sentences answers the question completely. Can you provide an analysis of total sales by month, days of week, and time of arrival? I can do that. That's part 2 of this one. So in this one, I have created months over here, days of week. So here we have sales by days of week. And in fact, let me go in here and I'm going to change this so that it looks a little bit nicer. Since these are sales, I'm going to go in here and choose number format and make this a currency. So that'll make it look really nice. There we go. That looks nicer. So now we see sum of sales by month and day, and then we have aging. Aging is the variable that we use for when it's delivered. So it is ordered on a date, and then one day is it delivered, 1 day later, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, so on and so forth. When we put this here, we can do it by pure numbers. We could also do it by show value as percent of grand total. That could be helpful as well. We can see if there's any major changes in this as well. So it's kind of whichever one you want to. We can get the same information off of both. But I'm going to go ahead and grab a snip of this. All right, copy that, and go back to my document and paste it in. All right, so for this one, if I look through the data, what I find is that there is a slight increase in sales for products that arrive within 1 day. There is little difference between the other days. The other, I'll say, arrival days. Products that arrive. Oh, that's good. Products that arrive. For products that arrive within 1 day, there is little difference between the other arrival days, meaning that we get the idea of how much this is, but we get a slight bump. I think it's actually about 15% for the arrival for day 1, and then the rest are lower. Which product generates the highest profit per unit? Highest profit per unit. I answered this question differently yesterday when we were talking about this in class. I think I got it wrong, but if I told you differently in class, don't worry too much about it. There's a reason why, and I'll actually show you why. So what I have here is I chose the product, so I have all the different products over here, and then on the values I have profit. Now what I've done here, because profit isn't exactly the same for each sale, I've changed the value. It normally is sum, so this is the sum. If we look at this, I have this sorted so that the largest number is at the top. By pure sales, the largest number is going to be t-shirts. T-shirts have the largest amount of profit. But the question is largest profit by unit. So I thought of that again, and I said instead of sum, let's do average. What that will do is that will average out the value of the profit by all the separate products, which means they'll be on a more even playing field. And there we see t-shirts fall down till number 3, and instead Apple laptops are number 1, which is kind of silly that we're only making $149 off of that, but that's good enough. Now here's an example where I'm not going to snip the whole thing. I'm just going to snip the top here because I have this sorted. So I'm just going to grab the top few, like so, copy it over here, which is the highest profit per unit, Apple laptop, 149.43 on average. If you chose t-shirts because you did some sort of different kind of mathematical function on there, that's okay too. It's more important to understand it than to get it exactly right, in that case at least. Are there any gender-based trends in the product categories? Question 5. Any gender-based trends? So I added product category to the rows, gender to the columns. Very heteronormative genders here. What I saw here, I ended up adding the product to the values here. What I found, I'm using count of product. What I found is, I'm also showing the values as percent of column total. There's a good reason for that, because I'm looking at these sort of intra set statistics, intra percentages. So for my grand total over here, I have almost 15% of sales are auto and accessories, a little over 5% of sales are electronics, exactly 50% of sales are fashion, and slightly over 30% are home and furniture. But if I look at them from the gender categories, I see that there is a little bit of a difference here. Males are a little bit higher on fashion, lower on home and furniture, lower on electronics, and higher on auto and accessories. Female customers are lower on auto accessories, higher on electronics, very, very slightly lower on fashion, and higher on home furniture. So I'm going to take a sniff of that. All right, answer that question. Are there any gender-based trends in the product categories? I would say female customers are higher in electronic and home and furniture, while male customers are higher in auto and accessories and I'll say auto and accessories. I'll say higher in auto and accessories and very slightly higher in fashion. That's a trend that I'm observing. Can you provide insights on the distribution of product purchases by gender? That's actually a great question, and one I did not answer already. So let me go back up in here, and I'm going to add product under here, under product category, and see what that gets me. So let's take a look at that. And let's, I'm going to sort by descending, by count of product. There we go. And let's see if I can tell anything based on this information. So it looks pretty even across the board for these purchases. Slightly more in bed sheets, but then again, slightly more overall. Auto and accessories are slightly higher. No major changes there. All right, let's take off product category for a second and take a look at it. And now I'm going to sort descending by count of product again. There's a lot of like non-specific things that we can see here, but I wouldn't say there's anything that I've seen to say that there's a great difference between their shopping habits. So what I would say to this is, while female customers purchase more electronic and home and furniture products, the proportion of products appears to be similar between the gender categories. All right. Which login method do customers generally prefer when shopping in e-commerce platform? All right. Question 6. Customer login type is the row. Customer login type count is the value. So easy one here. Member login is highly preferred. 49097. Also even say out of 51290. And you could also do percentage. That would also work too. Question 7. Among the product categories, which one incurs the highest shipping cost? All right. Question 7. You can answer this 2 different ways. I answered this one, so I added product category down here and then average shipping cost. Here you could do sum of shipping cost, and that would show you that fashion is higher. That is certainly the largest cost there in terms of sum. You could also do average shipping cost. That shows you that fashion is higher per unit. I'm going to do sum of shipping costs. Let's see, double check the question. Of the product, which incurs the highest shipping cost? Yeah, I think it's probably sum in this case. So I'm going to do a new snip of this. Like so. Copy that. Paste that in there. And say fashion at 207 237.90. All right. Provide a brief summary of the insights you gained from your answers to the questions above for the e-commerce platform. All right. Well, let's take a look and think about this for a second. Most people use browsers. Fashion is our highest selling product category. We do most of our sales during business hours. And our early quarter is poor. First quarter is poor. There's a slight increase for products within one day. Very little difference between the other days. We get the highest profit per unit, Apple laptop. But there are things that compete with it pretty closely. There is some differences between product categories, but we didn't see anything that looked extreme. And then most people are members. And we also get the highest shipping costs, which makes sense because if we look back at this first thing, that is also the highest for that. So if I were to give a brief summary of my insights, I would say, since customers have little difference in purchasing patterns for products arriving between 2 and 8 days, we could save some money in shipping costs on our highest sales category, fashion, by offering cheaper, slower shipping. In that category, at least. What else? That brings together a few things. Most of our logins are members, which show that conversion into members is easy enough for most users. Say most of our logins sales are members, which show that conversion into members is easy enough for most users. There are still about 2,000 guest logins that we could try to capture by making the membership sign-up process easier, perhaps quickly offering it mid-funnel transaction. Anything else I particularly care about? First quarter sales are lower than the rest of the year. As such, we should offer some sales promotion during that period to boost the lull in purchasing patterns. There you go. Simple enough. I didn't cover everything because not everything is particularly interesting. I look at the profit. That makes a lot of sense. Apple laptops, T-shirts are our highest profit making item, so on and so forth. So that's per purchase and everything. We could go through here and drill down more. There are definitely things that I think we probably could take a look at, and maybe add some sort of more helper columns. If we take a look at let's go down here and take a look at like t-shirts. The data isn't great at explaining this, but like t-shirts here we have, here's the sales number, here is the profit number, there's the discount number, and here is the purchase number, like the actual number purchased. I could do some extra work here, adding in a helper column that tries to cut this out a bit more. So like I could come in here and create, let's insert a new column, and we're going to call it drill down profit. And I can say, okay, this is going to equal that divided by that. And we'll make that a number. And I won't actually make this, we'll call that DDP. Drill down profit. All right. So we can take a look at that. Say, are we getting, if we try that instead for this, so we're going to say, let me go here and refresh this. Drop out profit and instead put in DDP. Not counter DDP. Average DDP. Oh, interesting. We have some issues here. The data's a little weird. Let's go take a look at that. Bike tires. What's happening there? Bike tires? Why are you having an issue, bike tires? I don't know why bike tires are having an issue. I think the data's just kind of funky. Let's see. I don't know. This is weird. But let's try that. Let's take a look at that. Let's sort this by average of DDP. For whatever reason, I don't know what the CarMat is having a problem. Can't divide by 0 for some reason. But if we look at it this way, we see the average drilled down, like per product that we look at, is actually tires and then Apple laptops. So if we did it this way, we could grab this and make an argument that this is actually the right answer to this question. It's actually tires instead of Apple laptops. This gives us our highest profit. But anyway, if you just did it the first way I did it, that's also fine. The data isn't perfect. The most important thing is that you're able to look at data and make some sort of decisions about it. Even if they're not entirely correct, at least they are something that you can argue. So I put that. That's good enough for me. If you wanted to provide a few more insights, that's okay. But I may go in here and say, it's rather than going through like one question at a time, I've kind of covered several of these things. I covered signups. I covered I could also cover like the gender disparities in here. I could add like another sentence or so about that. I've covered that. I've covered that. I've covered that. And I might cover question 1 too. So I could talk about the gender disparities quickly as well. Also come in here and say, let's see. Say male and female customers seem relatively equal in their purchases of fashion. As fashion is our highest grossing category, could lean into our store as a fashion depot. And then for logins, most of our customers use traditional web browser devices to access our service. We could consider creating a highly usable app to increase mobile device only users. I may say mobile only users. To increase, let's say, conversion of mobile only users. There we go. Now I've covered everything, I think. There we go. Then I would just save this and submit it. You can submit the Excel file if you want, but I'm more interested in the Word document. But yeah, that's it. Easily done. If I hadn't had so much dead air thinking about averages, that would have taken probably 20 minutes to half an hour. There you go. Y'all have a good night.